We've talked a lot, you and I, about the U.S. Democratic Senate primary where incumbent Ed Markey is facing a challenge from Congressman Seth Moulton. This also means Seth Moulton's Congress seat is opening up, and it's a really crowded Democratic primary. Can you tell us about some of these candidates?
It is. There are 6 candidates running. First off, let's name them all, and then we can try to sort them out into different groupings. There's Bethany Andrews Beck, John Betcha, Jamie Belcito, Dan Coe, Mariah Lancaster, and Tram Nguyen. That is the field of 6 candidates. It's hard when it comes to assessing their competitiveness to group them because there hasn't really been much polling in this race. The various candidates have trotted out internal polls, which always make them look good. But I don't think I've seen, at least not recently, a external, public, credible poll on this race. So one of the first things that we look at, as you know, is fundraising. And when it comes to fundraising, Dan Coe and John Betcha are heads and shoulders above everyone else. Dan Coe has raised about $4.5 million, maybe a little more. Same with John Betcha, although John Betcha is largely self-funding his campaign. And one of the things that they can do with all that money is they can run ads. And I have seen ads from each of these candidates so many times that I can recite the script for you, but I think we have a couple that we can take a listen to.
I'll play this and you can just word it, mouth it along.
Okay, sounds good.
Looking for someone who will work to lower costs?
You betcha.
Someone who will make housing affordable?
You betcha.
A self-made businessman who will stand up for middle-class families?
You betcha.
Then you might be interested in John Betcha.
You betcha.
It's
Where have we heard that before?
Admittedly catchy.
Right?
Right?
We're bringing back some Sarah Palin energy.
Some Sarah Palin energy, but the fact, this in a crowded field, I honestly think this is the sort of thing, because one of these candidates could win with 17% of the vote, and the fact that John Betcha's name also can be,
it's catchy.
It's catchy.
You
it's
betcha.
Catchy. So take a listen to the Dan Coe ad that we've picked out, and I want to talk about the comparison between the two because I think there's a very important difference.
Dan Coe grew up in a family of Korean and Lebanese immigrants in Andover. He's raising his kids here too. Dan's running for Congress because Trump's corruption is out of control.
So for me, what really jumps out there is the Trump's corruption line.
In a world where Trump is corrupt.
That's the primary rationale for Dan Coe's candidacy.
So he's
right?
going after Trump as opposed to going after other candidates.
As opposed to going after cost of living, which is what Betcha was doing in that first ad. So then we've got a third candidate. I want to make sure that I get to everyone. So give me a sign if I'm not moving fast enough. The third candidate is Tram Nguyen. She does not have nearly as much money as Betcha and Coe. But I think she's got, again, like all these candidates do, she's, I think, genuinely competitive, in part because she has some really valuable endorsements. She was endorsed the other day by Lori Trahan and Ayanna Pressley, 2 of the 3 women who represent Massachusetts in the House of Representatives. And she just got the endorsement of the Boston Globe, which, again, in a high candidate or high number of candidate, potentially low turnout race, that could be a difference maker. Let's take a listen to her ad.
Somewhere a little girl lives in public housing, relies on Medicaid, and is scared that her immigrant parents won't come home. I'm Tram Nguyen, and I was that little girl.
Tram Nguyen is a state representative. You would not know that from that ad. The Boston Globe did a piece a while back that suggested that these candidates were trying to cast themselves as either outsiders or insiders, and that Tram Nguyen was kind of straddling the fence in terms of casting herself as both. And I think that's a pretty astute analysis.
Okay, and those are just a couple of the candidates. You've kind of grouped the other candidates. Former state rep Jamie Belcito? Former Belcito, so I don't know why it's Belcito. Former software engineer Bethany Andrews Beck, and veterinarian and former federal worker Mariah Lancaster in sort of a tier below. Why is that?
Again, I'm doing that largely based on fundraising, and I don't want to be reductionist, but they don't have nearly as much money as the other 3 candidates. They've each raised, I think, between $300,000 and $400,000, so they don't have as much cash as their better funded rivals. But back when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was elected, when she beat Joe Crowley, the incumbent, who everyone thought was going to win, she'd only raised around $300,000, and that was a 2-person race. So you can be competitive with that kind of money, and each of them has an interesting pitch to make. Andrews Beck is the only candidate who announced their candidacy before Moulton said he wasn't going to run. They are very focused on the perils of AI and making AI sort of a benevolent force as opposed to a horrible thing that
learning
destroys.
more about it and then regulating it.
Learning
so
more
that we
about it
can
and
control it.
And their pitch essentially is, I'm a software engineer. I have insight into this that none of the other candidates in the race do. So if AI is on the forefront of people's minds, I think that's going to help Andrews Beck. Mariah Lancaster has been a veterinarian and an employee of the State Department, the House of Representatives. Their message is very solidly progressive to go along with what's sort of an unusual resume. I can't remember the last time a veterinarian ran for Congress in Massachusetts.
For the dogs.
And Jamie Belcito has been elected before. She was the first Arab American elected to the House of Representatives. And this is very important. I think she's probably the most outspoken of the bunch when it comes to what she describes as the U.S.-funded genocide in Palestine. She's also the founder of a national maternal mental health organization. And she has the endorsement of Diana DeZoglio, who everyone from left to right, far left to far right, everyone with the possible exception of the legislature is completely in love with. So that could boost her.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to take in for that one race. And then really quickly, we are looking at Patrick Roth challenging longtime Representative Stephen Lynch in the Massachusetts 8th, and Dan Lander is also challenging Will Brownsberger. I think we're looking at those because we've got, two young candidates who are coming out after longtime politicians, people who've held that seat for a long time.
Well, the Brownsberger contest is part of Michelle Wu running two candidates against established incumbents, Will Brownsberger and Nick Collins, because she was frustrated by the legislature's inaction on this tax plan that she had proposed. So that's a real test of Michelle Wu's muscle. And if she wins, her ability to oust one or two incumbent members of Congress is going to send a real statement and be a significant story moving forward. Patrick Roth got the endorsement of the Boston Globe. When I wrote about the congressional challengers, he was my pick for the one who was most viable. He's raised a lot of money. Polling suggests that he could beat Steve Lynch, which would be a great big deal because incumbent congresspeople don't generally lose.
They don't generally lose. Roth is also 39 years old, which is the average age of voters in that district. So we'll see how much the age issue really comes to the fore.
It's a nice thing for him to be able to hang his hat on, for sure.